Frank Turek is seeking a takedown, but it won't be me that will deliver the final blow. It will be YouTube. Frank Turek posted on Twitter that he was releasing a video that would probably be banned. I was curious. Is he going to use it to claim religious persecution? What would it contain that was likely to get it banned? He had the post up for a week before the release. It was unlisted. You had to request the link. I did. He's right. It will most definitely be banned. Let's have a chat. Hello and welcome. After I requested the video, I watched it. It has seriously gross graphic images that are insensitive and clearly used only for shock value. So instead of asking you to watch it, I asked Jim Hall to watch it, and I got his reaction. I will show you that interview covering the offensive images. They'll all be censored by cute animals. Jim actually caused me to shift my views on abortion somewhat during that interview, and I'll discuss that right afterwards. Let's take a look. Hello, Jim Hall. Thank you for helping me out with this one.
This is I'm kind of torn. I'm looking forward to it and I'm dreading it. So let's get cracking.
Okay.
Well, first I'll say Frank Turek. All I know going into this is that you're gonna show a Frank Turek video to me and get my reaction. Frank and I have had two discussions in the past, not one-on-one. We were part of an atheist and Christian book club, and he was the guest of honor twice for two of his different books. Each month it's a believer book and then an atheist book, and we flip-flop, and half the crowd is atheists and half the crowd is Christians.
Do they keep you separated?
No, it's funny. We naturally, we're all great friends. I'm real tight with the believers, but for some reason, the atheists tend to stay around the edges or kind of in that back foyer, and they don't sit up front. I don't know if that means anything. In my dealings with him personally, I have found him on the face, like he tries to present this persona of being open-minded and amicable with non-believers, but behind his eyes, his nonverbal cues, his micro expressions, you can tell that he's fighting back the urge to just go full firebrand on us, full evangelical. And the way he talks, it's veiled, but if you're listening, you can hear his intellectual dishonesty and his attempt. He's playing chess with you. He doesn't want you to know that he's playing chess. He wants to think, oh, we're just trying to reach the truth. Like I truly am. I'm trying to reach the truth. But he'll use the same type of language, but underneath that, he's playing chess. It's a boxing match to him, and he's looking for that gotcha question. He's trying to win souls.
The way this came about is Frank Turek posted on his Twitter a link to where you could get the link to a video. And he said, we are showing this video on abortion and it's going to get banned in the first few minutes. I viewed the video. It's only 4 minutes long. He is absolutely right. There is no way this will not be banned on YouTube.
Back in the fall of 2003, Republican Senator Sam Brownback of Kansas debated Democratic Senator Barbara Boxer of California on partial birth abortion. During the debate, Senator Brownback showed a photograph of a 21-week-old fetus that was spared an abortion by doctors who had operated on the baby while still in the mother's womb. The Republican senator then asked, "Is this the hand of a person or the hand of a piece of property?" To which Senator Boxer responded, "I am not a doctor and I am not God. I trust other human beings to make these decisions."
We're not scientists. I don't know what partial birth abortion means. What's the exact definition of partial birth abortion? They did say 21 weeks, as we've talked about before. Based on the studies I've read and the limited research I've done on it, 23 weeks seems to be the amount of the kind of the cutoff for me. Anything after 23 weeks of gestation, I start to get a little I'm for women's right to choose, but after 23 weeks of gestation, I don't know. I'm asking you, or leave a comment maybe. After 23 weeks, is it can the fetus live outside the womb? I am a vegetarian for a reason, and it's definitely not for health because I'm 50 pounds overweight. I've been a vegetarian 9 years. I'm a vegetarian because I don't think it's right. This is subjective, albeit. I don't think it's right for us to kill other non-human animals. I just don't. I would be a hypocrite if I said uh, a fetus after 21 here or 23, or state of Texas, it's 25, which is more than even mine. But at some point between maybe 21 and 25 weeks of gestation, a central nervous system has fully formed, has it not? And
Mhm.
if that, whatever you want to call it, blastula, fetus, embryo, baby, if it can feel pain closely resembling the kind of pain that adult humans can feel, I don't want any part of that.
Mhm. I think it's misleading because if you listen to the video, she didn't have an abortion. The doctor was performing a surgical procedure on a woman who was pregnant, and they're showing us pictures of this surgical procedure and saying, now, if this had been an abortion, but it's not.
I didn't catch that. See, they're very slippery. They're slippery eels.
Mhm,
Thinking in hypotheticals and showing you a picture of something, but talking about maybe some other case.
mhm,
Yeah, that's
mhm.
interesting. And when they showed the hand, I mean, ooh, man, they're clutching at heartstrings right there.
Oh,
Showing
yeah, no
a
question.
little hand like that, like even your most avid pro-choice activist would look at that and get a little uneasy feeling.
The other thing that I found interesting was the false dichotomy that he presented. He said, is this a person or is this a piece of property? And I don't think those are the only two choices here. I think a fetus is neither a person nor a piece of property. I think it's a part
I'm
of the mother's body.
I would agree up to a point. All of us, your most staunch anti-abortionist, your most avid pro-choice activist, everybody, we all need to stake out some left and right lateral limits, some boundaries. I liken to the Marine Corps. When we're firing heavy weapons, we put metal poles on top of the fighting hole. So then your weapon it'll hit that pole if you try to go too far left or too far right. It prevents friendly fire. So we need to stake out those poles, a hard left boundary and a hard right boundary. I would say the hard left boundary is, tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's any pro-choice activists that would say it is okay to perform an abortion the day before labor was going to be induced at the end of the third trimester, right? So we can
Well,
start there, right?
first of all, I had a conversation that we got into this a little bit with Dr. Ben. He's a third
Yep.
year med student. And he said anything after the 21st week is not considered an abortion, it's considered a delivery. So if there is
Oh,
any reason to terminate a pregnancy of a viable baby, they don't abort it, they deliver it. Now, whether
21
you end
weeks.
up delivering a live baby or you deliver a stillbirth, those are differences. But
Oh,
either way, the aim there is a delivery. So if a woman decides the day before she's due, do I want to terminate this pregnancy? The doctor would say, fine, we will schedule you a induced delivery. And that's what they'll do. They'll deliver the baby.
let me make sure I got this correct. I'm so ignorant on this. So anywhere in America at the 21 week, that's a cutoff. Anytime after the 21st week of gestation, it becomes a delivery procedure. Whether or not that baby slash fetus slash embryo is going to be is viable outside the womb. It's
It
not
is
considered
from
it.
a
There's
medical
not.
standpoint,
Yeah, there's
but
not.
not necessarily from a legal standpoint.
Right. Might not like Texas. It's 25 weeks. I think
No, no,
those
no,
state.
no. I'm saying that the doctors will say this is a delivery, but if you go to a legal standpoint, they
Okay.
may still say this is an abortion.
Right. Um, so the actual procedure of performing an abortion with the suction, I'm trying to be less non-graphic as I can. Suction technique or chemical inducement, right?
Okay,
Um,
chemical can only be done up to about the 15th or 16th week.
Oh, and that's countrywide.
I'm
Oh,
assuming
okay.
what you're talking about is where a woman takes a pill and as a result has a natural miscarriage.
A pill
Yeah,
or an injection, yeah. And then
yeah.
the suction technique is
That
just
will
to
be used
clean everything
later
out, yeah.
when you can no longer have a chemical abortion.
But that's not being done after 21 weeks anywhere, right?
It is done after 21 weeks in some places. It really is confusing because there isn't a consensus.
Yeah. Well,
What
coming back to that left lateral limit. So just to be generous, for pro-choice left lateral limit would be, let's give it 25 weeks. So
Mhm.
no pro-choice activist would say after 25 weeks, start the suction process or the chemical process, right? Pretty much.
I think there
Okay,
are some that
25.
would. Yeah.
Okay, let's go
I have to
30. Okay,
say,
let's go
I don't
30.
thi
And then on the
yeah,
far
let's go
right
30.
side, the far right lateral limit would be the exact moment of conception, which is just fucking nutso, right? So
Right.
the truth I mean, not the truth, but the happy spot lies somewhere in between those 30 weeks and conception. Well, it's up to us as a very polarized, divided society to try to find some consensus where we're all happy. And I don't know if we're ever going to find it, but it
I
might lie
don't think we
somewhere right
can.
around 21 weeks
Mhm.
if the right wants to give that much. And when they said property in the video, what they mean is it's your body, it's your right to choose. But at some point during the pregnancy, it can survive outside the womb. It's viable.
Right.
Abortions can no longer be given if the mother wants to terminate it. It becomes a delivery process. At that
Right.
point, it's not really her, even though it's inside her. And this is where it gets confusing. But it's an independent organism. It's still got the umbilical cord. It's not breathing on its own yet, but it still can survive outside the womb. It just seems to me, and this is why I'm a little centrist and not as far left as some of my atheist counterparts, but it seems to me that that's a good time to say, you are a human being, and therefore legally you are a U.S. citizen, and you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There, said it.
Okay.
Question: do you have to be a doctor or do you have to be God in order to know that this is a human being?
They're showing another hand with, fully formed digits and tugging at your heartstrings again.
This is Moloch, a Canaanite god. The scriptures strongly condemn any practices associated with Moloch, which included child sacrifice. And yet, the nation of Israel were sacrificing their offspring to this metallic deity. A ritual started by King Solomon 350 years prior to the judgment. So, how exactly were the children of Israel being sacrificed?
350 years prior to what judgment?
He'll go into that in a minute. But
Okay.
one of the things that I thought was interesting there is he admits that the Hebrews were involved in child sacrifice. And clearly they were. This is one of the points that Dr. Josh Bowen makes to believers when they say, well, the cleansing of Canaan was justified because these people were wicked because they were practicing child sacrifice. And Josh Bowen says, well, the Israelites practiced child sacrifice too.
And what were the Israelites before they were Israelites? Do you know?
Canaanites.
They were freaking they were offshoots of the Canaanites, the Moabites, all of them. They spread out. They took one or two of the old Canaanite gods with them. The Israelites took Yahweh, the war god, and the Moabites took Baal, and they made them their god. But yeah, I mean, 300 to 600 years prior to the Israelites, prior to the whole Mosaic and all the Old Testament stuff, before they were Israelites, they were Canaanites. And guess what they were doing? And early Israelites were also practicing all the old Canaanite customs, not just child, but human sacrifices. At least they admitted it. You're right.
Step 1. The priest of Moloch would heat up the metallic idol. Step 2. The metal surface of the idol would become blazing hot. Step 3. The children of Israel were placed on the molten arms of Moloch as a burnt offering. In other words, the children of Israel were literally being burned alive. And these were God's chosen people who were performing such atrocities. But after 3.5 centuries of rebellious behavior, God's patience with Israel had come to an end. And the Lord God set forth his prophet Jeremiah to the city of Jerusalem to proclaim the following message. The people of Judah have sinned before my eyes, says the Lord. They burn their sons and daughters in the fire. I have never commanded such a horrible deed. So beware, for a time is coming when the bodies of my people will be food for the vultures. The land will lie in complete desolation.
So he's saying that because the Israelites did go ahead and practice child sacrifice, then God judged them for them. The one thing I think that they've missed here, though, is that the Israelites were practicing child sacrifice long before 350 years after Solomon, which is the claim of the video, that they didn't start this until after they got this from the Canaanites, but actually they were practicing it much earlier.
Yes, I agree. I know the Israelites were doing it. I don't know much about the other Semitic offshoots of the Canaanites. The Carthaginians, those are Hebrews too. The Carthaginians over in Africa, those are offshoots of the Canaanites as well. And
I did not know that.
Oh, I mean, it's spread out like a spider web right around 900 to 650 BCE. And they would, Israelites took Yahweh, and this group would take Baal, and this group would take Asherah, and this group would take Anat. But these were all part of the original Canaanite pantheon. El was the Lord in the Canaanite religion. And then El became not a proper name anymore, just became the name of the Lord. Whatever Lord you chose, that became your El.
And this is what the God of the universe thinks of sacrificing your children on the altar of convenience, complete and utter desolation.
One thing I think is kind of weird here is that he talks about this being the altar of convenience, and I know that he's trying to draw a parallel to today, but can you really say that anyone in the ancient world was sacrificing their children because it was convenient?
And that's true. And to dovetail on that, no one, even modern day, wants to get an abortion. It's always a very inconvenient, very uncomfortable, very sad time in their lives. And various levels of preparation was put in prior to coitus, but no one plans an abortion. Yeah.
How much longer does America have before God passes judgment on us? We're actively aborting over 860,000 innocent lives per year. That translates to roughly 2,400 human victims a day. What will be our just punishment?
Now, what week of gestation do you think that fetus is that in that last scene?
I really don't know. If I had to guess, I would say probably 21 to 23.
Yeah, right at that kind of that key spot. I've heard pushback with, yes, a CNS, a central nervous system, is fully formed at X number of weeks. I used to think it was 6. And since then, it's become 23 in my mind. And that's very flexible based on new information that could change for me. Let's just say 23 weeks. And the pushback is the CNS, the way entity feels pain is way different than a small child or an adult would feel pain. They try to downplay it by saying it's not real pain. It's just a signal. What, isn't our pain just a signal to the brain?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
If it hurts, I want to limit the amount of suffering in the world, Kelly. That's it. That's all. It's why I'm a vegetarian. It's why I get kind of queasy about if something's feeling pain. I don't want that. I picked the wrong moment to eat my zucchini noodles with marinara sauce. I like to think I'm numb to it, being a multiple tour combat veteran and seeing burned bodies and just a lot of things that are etched in my psyche, but that never gets easy to watch. in anything like that. They make sure they have fully formed human hands and feet in there. They want you to know it's as human as it possibly can be. It comes without context too. At what stage
Exactly.
of gestation were those entities?
Well, the other questions that I have is what were the reasons that these fetuses were aborted? Was it because they were never viable in the first place? And that's where I disagree with you on putting a hard limit at a certain number of weeks, because some fetuses are never viable. I agree with you that a woman should not be able to just decide, I don't want to carry this baby to term after it is sentient. But I do agree that a woman shouldn't be forced to carry the baby to term if she doesn't want to. That what we do is we deliver the baby and we take care of the baby and we put the baby up for adoption. But I also think that there has to be a vehicle by which a woman who has a non-viable baby can terminate that pregnancy because she doesn't want to carry what will never be a baby.
And you, I agree with all that. You said it so eloquently. Um, there has to be a legal limit. I mean, the law has to say a X number of weeks. You wouldn't be cool after 25 weeks. I wouldn't be cool after 23 weeks, but the law has to set a limit. We can't go by, if we go by doctor's discretion, there's gonna be a lot of bias. There's gonna be the doctor that says, oh, you can abort it the day before the pregnancy. I mean, the day before the delivery. Oh, and there's going to be a doctor says, I can't abort it, from conception on. Their own biases are going to factor in unless there's a hard legal limit. So there's got to be a stake put in the ground.
I see where you're coming from. Yeah, you're right. There definitely is a very different view from different doctors. But on the other hand, I also think there are too many medical questions involved for this to be determined by legislature.
That's true. It's a sticky, very complicated
It
subject.
is. I don't.
Also, in the video, they cited a Bible verse. I
Mhm.
don't know the actual verse right off the top of my head. Maybe you do. There is definitely somewhere in the Bible that talks about a woman who was accused of adultery, and they brought her into the temple, the tabernacle, the tent, whatever it was, and they mixed this potion using some sand or soil from the floor, and they mixed something with it, and they made this potion, and it was to catch her. If she drank it and she had cheated, then it would produce an abortion. And if she was
Right,
innocent, she'd be all right. So that
right.
sounds, I don't know. I don't know the apologetic counter to that. Well, I'd like to hear the actual counter to that, because they're always saying you're taking it out of context. Tell me in what context would that be not abortion? I would love to hear
Final
that.
thoughts. I would be interested in what you think of the tactic that Turek is using here in trying to convince people that abortion is wrong with this.
Based on talking to him in person, this is classic Frank Turek. Now, we're assuming that he wrote the script, chose the clips. He could have had a staff to do it for him, but it was directly in line with his way of thinking. This one's a little more blunt and to the point. He usually clouds his speech to make it seem more amicable than what it really is. This one is hard hitting.
The thing that really gets me, though, is the really hard message that if we don't do something about this, God is going to judge our country. Just like God came and destroyed the Israelites and sent them all off into exile in Babylon, God's going to destroy our country too unless we do something about this.
Yeah, that's straight out of the 700 Club Pat Robertson playbook, isn't it? I mean, this is nothing more than Katrina's gonna cause judgment for the gay people in New Orleans.
Mm.
It's really no
Mhm.
different, right? Yeah.
Mhm. I think it has a lot more punch to it than that did.
Well, this one is directly trying to change legislation.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you know what's going on here in my state. I mean, it's leading the way, and it's not just going to be Texas, because other states they're using us as the example. What
Mhm.
Greg Abbott is doing, other states are going to try to follow if there's even a modicum of success. even if it hinders and hampers and doesn't get legislation changed right away. I don't know how many actual women's health clinics slash abortion clinics slash Planned Parenthood venues there are in the state, but they are dwindling. And I know there was a piece I watched about how the whole South Texas around the Rio Grande, there are none. They're gone. You have to drive to Houston. You have to drive hundreds and hundreds of miles in your own state just to get to a clinic that can take care of you. And they don't
And
realize it's not just for abortions, and this is for all types of family planning and women's health. So they're affecting that too.
the interview I did with Ben yesterday is on the Oklahoma woman. Her name is Brittany Pulaw, who was convicted of manslaughter because she had a miscarriage. The intent of the law is to try to backdoor in prohibition against abortion. But in the process, there is so much discrimination against pregnant women. They're really encouraging abortion and encouraging women to never get pregnant because there's just too much prejudice against pregnant women.
In my state, the Republicans are cheering the new stricter anti-abortion bills. I kind of laugh at the Church of Satan, the satanic group. I kind of laugh at them as a parody, almost like Flying Spaghetti Monster. They're doing it because they like to cosplay sometimes. And sometimes they can be beneficial to us non-believers.
Yes.
You know
Yes,
where
I know
I'm going with
exactly where
this?
you're going. Yep.
They're using this to put their foot in the door, to shoehorn in our religious liberty. We includes abortions anytime we want. It goes in line with the Church of Satan's their creed, right? So by the same token, they're trying to make abortions legal for them because it's religious freedom.
Part of their religion.
They're using
right.
they're using their own laws against them, and if that does work, hats off to them. And I wonder how big the Church of Satan or the satanic groups are going to get, because everyone's going to join that church.
That's a good question. I hadn't
Yeah.
thought of that.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much for your reactions, Jim. This has been enlightening and it's been helpful and it's also been very interesting.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm gonna try to finish this plate of zucchini noodles with marinara if I can get through it. And I'm glad Kelly spared you all the gruesome details. So we watched it, so you don't have to.
Live your life. The abortion issue is extremely complex. If there was an easy answer, better minds than mine would have come up with it by now. I do think that there is technology that will solve some of the problem, but that solution is still in the making. So the best answer might be that we simply need to accept the status quo until that happens. The biggest issue is that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. Jim wants a ban on abortion after about 21 weeks when the fetus is viable. I'm sure he would make exceptions for saving the life of the mother. His reasoning is the fetus is at a viable point and has a fully developed nervous system. But part of the problem is that viability is different for different fetuses, and some fetuses never become viable. A hard and fast rule that abortion is illegal after a certain number of weeks of pregnancy fails to take into account the pregnant person who is then forced to carry to term a fetus that will never be viable. This is extremely difficult mentally and socially. Having carried a dead fetus for 3 weeks myself, I can tell you I had to shut myself in my house and not go out. When you are near the end of pregnancy, everyone asks you when you are due. Everyone gets all happy for you. And when you know there will not be a baby, that really is hard to take. When someone asks you, boy or girl, and your response is, it's dead, they don't know what to do. They just hurry off. A pregnant person who is carrying a fetus that cannot become viable at any time should be able to terminate the pregnancy at any time. It shouldn't matter if the person is 10 weeks or 30 weeks. If the fetus isn't viable, termination should be an option. Now, the other side of the coin. How severe must a defect be before a fetus is termed unable to become viable? Will allowing termination for non-viability be a backdoor way to eugenics? I don't know. It could be. One doctor's opinion might be the fetus could live, and another might say no. Medicine, like all sciences, is not perfect. There are differing opinions. Next, the bodily autonomy issue. Every person has the right to autonomy. No baby has the right to demand that another person sustain its life. Even if the fetus is a person at viability, it still doesn't have the right to use another person's body to sustain its life. On the other hand, a viable fetus with a fully functioning nervous system has the right not to be harmed or injured. While the pregnant person has the right to say they don't want to sustain the fetus, a viable fetus also has the right not to be harmed. If a viable fetus is killed in the process of delivery, intentionally, in a manner that causes pain to a sentient being, we are causing harm. We are causing injury. The bodily autonomy right of the pregnant person does not supersede the right of a viable fetus to not have to experience pain. Obviously, if the life of the parent is in danger, the fetus must be delivered, even if that delivery causes the death of the fetus. There is no point in forcing both to die. But there are too many gray areas. What about the mental health of the parent? Is the danger to the mental health of the parent not just as great as the danger to the parent's physical health? How does one determine at what point continuing the pregnancy has put the parent's mental health into a category where a delivery of the fetus is necessary, even if it kills the fetus in the process? Again, there are no answers to these questions, which is why there can be no hard and fast rules about abortion. No matter where you draw the line, there will be cases that don't fit the rule. But having no lines at all leaves us open to causing needless harms to viable humans. Pro-life people say because there is no way to make a hard line, just put the line at conception and err on the side of caution. But this errs on the side of denying parents their rights. It also results in absurd requirements, like I talked about in my last video, like holding parents criminally responsible for miscarriage, like creating a duty to bury a zygote that is expelled without implanting, as that is a person and is entitled by law to a human burial. A possible solution is on the horizon: gestating pods that allow a fetus to grow outside of a human parent. When this technology is available, a parent could choose to terminate a pregnancy at any stage, and the fetus could continue gestation without suffering demise. With this technology, both bodily autonomy and fetal life can be preserved. Artificial wombs have been used to complete gestation of lambs born prematurely, but we are still years away from being able to do this with humans. There is no answer that is sensitive to all parties involved. There is no way to solve unwanted pregnancy through legislation. There is no way to make legislation that is both able to take into account all of the medical situations that can arise in pregnancy and be able to protect a viable fetus from undue harm. What we can do, though, is quit weaponizing graphic surgical images to make a point. Frank has no viable legal position that won't cause great damage to pregnant people and to society in general. He uses graphic images of a surgical procedure to make an emotional appeal. When the facts are on your side, pound the facts. The facts are not on Frank's side. There is no God getting angry and preparing to destroy the United States because of abortion. People like Frank have been making claims like this about every issue under the sun since the beginning of religions. Better take my side, because God is on my side. The law is not on Frank's side. He can't pound the law because currently a woman has a right to choose an abortion. There are limitations on that right, but Frank wants to eliminate the right entirely. Anyone who studies history knows that when abortion was a crime, there were entire hospital wards just for the sick and dying women who were injured during an illegal abortion. Abortion is a part of life. Some abortions occur naturally, some are induced. But making it illegal to induce a delivery will cause the needless deaths of many women. When abortion was a crime, abortions continued just the same. They just were not safe. Until you can solve the underlying reasons that pregnant people seek abortions, you cannot end abortion through legislation. And no, adoption is not always a solution. So what do we do when the right to bodily autonomy of a pregnant person conflicts with the rights of a viable human not to be harmed? That I cannot answer. What I can say is claiming that a God will rain judgment on you if you don't do it Frank's way, then filling people's heads with graphic images intended to evoke an emotional reaction will not get us to a rational result. If Frank wants to release videos that he knows will get banned, whatever. Just wait for him to claim persecution of his ideas. I'm taking bets in the comments on how long it will take Frank to claim that his religious liberty is being denied him. Friendly bets, no money involved. I'll watch Twitter for a claim on this from him and declare a winner from the comment that I see that is closest. If you see Frank crying foul about getting his video banned, let me know, just in case I miss it. Emotional appeals like Frank's are worthless as they do nothing to solve the problem, which is why his video deserves a takedown. Until there is a workable solution that addresses the problem from every perspective, legal, medical, moral, and social, just do what you can. Make life livable for everyone. Live your life.